So welcome to the Lovefly podcast. And today we are joined by Amanda Martin from the Aviation Weather Centre. Oh my goodness, I'm so glad I got that right. I was just saying to Amanda before we started, I nearly stuffed it. When I've got to say something more than somebody's name, pretty much my brain just sods off. It goes, aha, and you leave you on your own. So I managed to get the whole sentence out. And from here onwards, we'll just say AWC. So welcome. So tell us about yourself, Amanda. What do you do? What does your company do that you work for, and anything else you want to think would be helpful for our listeners?
Yeah, sure. So thanks for having me on. I'm glad to be here. My name, as he already said, is Amanda Martin. I work for the Aviation Weather Center. It is one of the 9 national centers with the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. And we are tasked with aviation, flight safety, and forecasting across the CONUS as well as internationally.
Brilliant.
I have
We've been desperate to get somebody in with your expertise for a long time. So I'm just shut up. Yeah.
No, that's fine. Again, I'm glad that I can be here and tell you guys about what we do. So just a little background on myself. I have been at the AWC for almost 10 years now. And then before that, I was a forecaster at a weather forecast office. So now I'm at the National Center. So, aviation is our area of expertise and responsibility. And before that, I was doing weather balloon releases and forecasting, your daily highs and lows and thunderstorm warnings and that kind of stuff. So I've actually been with the Weather Service for a fair amount of years.
Excellent. So tell us a little bit about, because you said earlier on, you really like your work and in fact, pretty cool stuff that you do and what you've got access to and all the rest of it. And I'd like people to get a sense of that because there's a lot of chat in our fear of flying communities that talk about the weather and is it getting worse and global warming and, because the media jumps on stuff like that. Turbulence is going to, etc. You know how it is. So I thought we've been thinking for a while, it'd be nice to have somebody who actually knows what they're talking about come on the podcast. That's you, Paul. So you know more than we do. So yeah. So tell us how it works, do your service does.
Sure. So I actually didn't really know much about the AWC before I got here. I was interested in aviation and it was really fascinating to me. At the forecast office, you do TAFs, which are your terminal aerodrome forecasts, I believe. And it's basically a forecast for like a specific airport and within 5-mile radius of that airport. And so I thought it was cool. And we also, where I was located, we have a center weather service unit, which is where meteorologists are stationed at the air route traffic control centers working hand in hand with the FAA and the controllers for aviation safety.
Right.
So that kind of is what sparked my interest in aviation in the first place. And then once I got to the AWC, it is a whole different ballgame than at a local forecast office. So here,
can I just ask you, Amanda, before we sort of, because I'm interested in that, but also the forecasting, how accurate would you say that they were, in terms of what the sort of weather systems are going to be like?
At the local office or here?
No, the local office before you came here.
I think that everybody at the local forecast office, I mean, you end up, if you've been there for a couple years or so, you have, you're a local expert on the weather there, and there's, different terrain in places. I came from the desert Southwest, so we had mountains, and part of our area also was in the plains, the Great Plains, and so we had varying weather systems, but across the U.S., we have over 120 offices, and I'm very proud to be in the Weather Service, and I think that our folks are, bar none when it comes to wanting to, promote safety, and we've got a really dedicated group of folks here. So it's that local expertise and knowledge, and I think it's a good. I mean, none of us come to work, hoping to mess up a forecast, right? It's definitely not what we do. I know meteorologists get a bad rap sometime because We can be wrong, but it's the folks in the Weather Service are some great people, and we really do just want to, protect life and property.
Nice. All right, very good. So tell us about this gig you do now. So what's up? What do they do? What's the AWC do? Because I'm not going to attempt to say the rest of it now.
Right. So we do a lot here at the AWC, actually. Like I said before, I really didn't know much coming in. But the way we have it now is we have 8 different desks in the office. And we're all broken up into different hazards, basically. So we have a domestic side and an international side.
Okay.
So we have 5 desks on our international branch. And we have, of those 5, we have a forecaster for ceilings and visibility. So that forecaster is doing IFR, which is low clouds.
Okay. What does IFR? Do you know what IFR stands for? I haven't heard that abbreviation before.
Right. IFR is
that a pilot term? Is that, or is that?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, it's an aviation term. It means instrument flight rules. So you're going to have to use instrumentation on the aircraft. Okay. And that is whenever you are below a mile visibility.
Okay. Right.
So that forecaster is forecasting areas across the U.S. and coastal waters where they think that the visibilities are going to be down below that threshold. And they're also doing mountain obscurations. So if we've got any sort of, not necessarily, fog per se, is not a big issue for the mountains. But if we think that the peaks are going to be obscured, we'll be issuing that as well. We have an icing forecaster, and it's pretty basic what they do. They forecast any icing across the U.S. They also do multiple freezing levels, and then they'll have the freezing level as well on some of our products. And that's, again, just for, for avoidance. You know what I mean? If you see an area we're forecasting for that there's an icing potential, you can, well, not you, but the pilots and the aircraft dispatchers can use that to alter their route if needed. And then turbulence, of course, is the big one with aviation. So we have a turbulence forecaster. Again, all of these forecasters are dedicated to that specific hazard. Wow. And that is what their shift entails. And so our turbulence forecaster is doing high turbulence, low turbulence, any low-level wind shear, as well as surface winds that are getting up to, 35 miles per hour or greater.
I was curious, because obviously I'm a complete idiot when it comes to this type of stuff. I have no idea how you do what you do, but could you sort of give us an idiot's guide to how you actually forecast? Like, how would you say, it looks like there's going to be some ice there, or there's going to be some turbulence, there's some wind moving at this speed. How on earth do you even do that?
Right. We're using observations, ground truth, as well as like the SQTs that the balloon releases produce. We're looking at those to analyze levels of potential icing. Model data.
What, you said something about QTs? You say something?
Sorry, a SQT. Yeah, it's basically a vertical slice of the atmosphere. And it's what the weather balloons give us that are released daily. So we'll look at that. And then we're also using satellite and radar as well to do those forecasts. So, and again, it's really just dependent on what you're looking at. As far as like turbulence goes, you're looking at the big picture. Where are your big systems coming in? We're wanting to know where your high and your low pressures, where any sort of cold fronts or warm fronts, and then of course the model data that's taking it out. Further into the future to create those forecasts. We're also looking at current conditions. Sorry.
That's all right.
We're also looking at current conditions so that we make sure that our forecast is staying accurate for the time. And then, of course, too, like if we have fog and it's, dissipating faster than we anticipated, that's good for us to know too for the future. Because then we could be like, oh, well, I thought it was going to be in this area, but obviously it's not. And it's, the next system that's coming in isn't conducive to that. So it can help us formulate an opinion on that as well. We're also taking into account pilot reports.
Okay.
So, there can be, I'm sure you know this number, but there's over 5,000 planes in the air at any given time of the day. And
5,000 at any given time of the day.
Right.
Wow.
Obviously, it's typically less overnight, but during the daylight hours, there's thousands of planes in the air, not only commercial, but you've got your general aviation as well as military and, just kind of everyone, especially if it's a nice day out, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, we use a lot of things. We actually had the new satellites that have gone up in the past, I believe, 5 or so years that have added capabilities. So those are super helpful. And then back to the pilot reports, if a pilot's hitting turbulence, they can report that. So they can enter it or give it to a dispatcher that'll enter it. And then we get all of those.
Okay.
And that helps us to make our decisions for our forecast, because not only are we forecasting for these conditions, but we're also issuing warnings if it's severe enough to warrant, that sort of product.
Yeah. So this is like blowing my mind, this cigar.
It's a lot. It's like a fire hose.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. So how do you get this information to them? So, so you must have deadlines that you have to produce stuff by for them to be able to use it. Who does it go to first and what do they do with it? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So we do have scheduled product issuance times. So like our forecasts are going out at specific times every day. And we do have unscheduled products, and those are our warnings. So our warnings are issued whenever they're needed. If we're getting a lot of severe pilot-ups, which are pilot reports, or a lot of moderate in an area that, we think is going to be an issue later, we can put a warning out for that. And those ones, again, those are unscheduled. So it's just whenever we feel conditions are going to continue for those, we'll have those out as long as they need to be.
Right. Okay. And so how does a pilot get your information? Because even just listening to you now, it sounds quite technical. Obviously, pilots are very technical people, and perhaps they just go, "Oh yeah." But is there like a filter that comes through, or do they just get it direct to their little iPads? How's it work?
Anything we issue is available to the public via our webpage. So anyone can access it. I can't really speak to the pilot part
That's
of
going to
it.
be lethal now.
I know. Have a bunch of you guys. But on that note, we did just upgrade our website to make it more mobile friendly.
Right.
So, so if general aviation pilots want to look at our website while they're flying, they can. And we've made it so that it's going to be easier on smaller devices versus a desktop per se. But flight dispatchers are able to get our information. They can put it in the packet for the pilots. Right. But yeah, like I said, anybody can access our information.
So it's quite an interesting role, isn't it? That you're spending all your time just looking, all of you all around the country are looking at specific things, like different elements of weather systems, and then sending it all in. And then the pilots, the forecasters, the planners have got all this access to this amazing information that you are just working on all the time. That's just mind-blowing, isn't it?
It is, yeah. So we're the only National Center for Aviation. So we're the ones who are creating all of these. We do work closely with the forecast offices and the CWSU forecasters as well. If we need to coordinate any sort of warnings or anything like that, we want to make sure that we're sending everybody the same message. But as far as aviation, we're it for national centers wise.
Yeah, that's incredible. So a lot of questions come up around weather, And,
Yes.
our pilots spend, when we run our fear of flying courses, I would say our pilots spend a good 20 minutes, 30 minutes with weather-related questions. In a session, which might be 3 hours, they'll be turbulence, clouds, wind shear, lightning, all of that stuff, just thunderstorms. So so I think what would be really helpful is for people to understand, the level of sort of what the stuff that you're getting together, how it actually sort of helps them to be so confident. Because they're always like confident. They're like, yeah, turbulence doesn't hurt us and clouds don't bother us and we can see thunderstorm. And they're really casual and relaxed about it. So what is it that you do that's given them that confidence, you think?
Oh, yeah. So I actually only touched on 3 of our desks so far out of the 8, but kind of
all right, okay.
It's a perfect segue into it. We do have convective desks as well. And so our convective segment desk is just that. He or she, sorry. So our convective segment desk forecaster, it is basically issuing thunderstorm warnings for airplanes. And so that product is issued every hour. And they'll just put out, a box or, some sort of polygon to be like, hey, there's an area here with thunderstorms in it. Try to not fly in there. So that's one product. Obviously now it's not too crazy over the winter, but once we get into like July and August, it's tough. And like you said, it's really plane dependent. Commercial airlines, they're bigger, right? They're heavies, we call them. So they're going to be able to sustain different thresholds than the general aviation pilot, in a Cessna.
Yes.
But again, all of this information is available to both of those pilots. So we have our convective segment forecaster who's putting out the warnings to, show them and be like, hey, there's, thunderstorms in this area. Let's not go there or try and fly around it. And we also have it's more of a convective planning tool used more by the FAA side. And that is for a thunderstorm forecast for 4, 6, and 8 hours into the future. And that's for flight planning. Because if you don't want to be making changes when you're in the air, right? You want to be able to know beforehand, hey, this area may be an issue and you can change, not you per se. I keep saying you, but they can change their flight plan. They can change their flight plan if needed.
So that's really helpful. So
so we're giving them all of this information. Yeah. And I haven't even went over our international desks yet.
All right, well, keep going, because I think I always think of the nervous flyer listening to this, thinking, so what sort of comfort can I think about? And already you think about all these things that you are specifically looking at and telling flight planners and pilots, this is what's going on. That's already that was going to reassure people, because I think, crikey, I didn't even know you existed, like, to the extent that you do. People know there's a meteorologist. They know that, but they don't know. Now they've met one. There you are. So what else have you got?
No. And another thing, too, to tell them is we're here staffed 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. So we have someone here all the time who is doing these forecasts and making sure that warnings are being issued when needed. Again, to promote safe and efficient flight. To promote safe and efficient flight across the national airspace system. Yeah.
Goodness me. What else? So what else? What other desks you got? You mentioned quite a few. What else?
Right. So those were all of our domestic desks. We do have an international side as well.
Right.
And as the name suggests, they have global responsibilities. So we have a tropical forecaster, and they write a text product for aviation across portions of the Gulf of Mexico and the Caribbean. And they also have warning responsibilities. Like our FA forecasters, they have warning responsibilities across the CONUS for their specific hazards. Our tropical forecaster does that as well for the Gulf of Mexico. We also have a large portion of the Atlantic, and then In the Pacific, we go all the way from the California border with our domestic side all the way out to Japanese airspace. And for that, we're issuing warnings on thunderstorms, icing, turbulence, same things that our domestic side is issuing, except we're doing it for the oceans. So even too, if you have any flyers that are doing, transatlantic or Pacific flights, like we're forecasting for those areas as well.
Wow.
And even tropical cyclones too. Our tropical desk forecaster is responsible for the warnings, the aviation warnings for the tropical cyclones. So we work with the Hurricane Center on those ones, making sure that we have the same information and coordinates and movement and all that stuff. One thing that's different about the tropical desk is volcanic ash. So we also issue warnings for volcanic ash because you definitely do not want planes flying through that.
Nope.
And we haven't had to issue too many on the domestic side. I know we did have one, I think it was last year, that came into the Pacific Northwest. But yeah, and then to kind of round it out, we have our global graphics forecasters, and they are strictly forecasting. They don't issue any warnings, but they're doing a 24-hour forecast across the globe for your jets. So we'll have they draw the jets and put the max on them, wind speed, direction. And then they'll do turbulence as well, anything moderate or greater, as well as areas of thunderstorms. And then, of course, you'll have your high and low pressure, and we include any tropical systems or active volcanoes on those charts as well.
Good. Wow. That's just mind-blowing. All right, so 2 questions, right?
Okay.
Who pays for all this, and what, and why won't they just turn that off and say, "Oh, we don't need it"?
We're federal government.
All right, okay, so that's fair enough. And so how far do you cover, and then who covers the bits that you don't cover?
When it comes to the domestic airspace, we obviously have a huge area of responsibility, and then it goes to our neighboring spurs, which are flight information regions. So like just for example, out in the Pacific, we're bordered on the south by the Hawaii office. So they have aviation responsibilities.
That's where I want to work. The Hawaii office. I'll do anything. I'll be the cleaner in the Hawaii office. I don't care. Sorry.
And then in the north is like Alaska. So then the Alaska Aviation Weather Unit takes care of that information. And then of course to the west of that is
this is a test.
Japanese airspace.
You're memorizing all this.
I know. I'm like, who's there? But yeah, even too on our Atlantic side, we border the Portugal flight information region. So we had to coordinate with them last summer because we had a couple of those hurricanes that were just like bouncing back and forth. And so we had to coordinate who was going to, issue the warnings for that during that time frame. But yeah, so basically whenever it's not in our space, you're going to be covered by another aviation flight information region. Yeah, they're all across the U.S.
This is great stuff. So the question that's, the question that's coming out because the media has been what it is, and some anecdotal reports. People are saying, turbulence is getting worse. There's more of it. There's, it's going to get us. It's going to be too scary to fly at all, and all this stuff. I mean, obviously, there's a little bit of I want to say the word. What's the polite word? Media spin on that. But what's the truth in terms of the weather systems, and particularly when it comes to turbulence and things, jet streams, that sort of thing? What's your view on that?
Right. So I really can't speak to the sensationalism of that sort of thing. We're out here forecasting for turbulence, just like with all of the weather, it's cyclical. So you do have, we have like El Nino, La Nina, and that all affects the weather patterns differently. So I know this year we've been having some really strong jets across the Atlantic. And, winter is actually winter on the turbulence desk here is terrible. it is just so busy, and that's because that's how it normally is. Turbulence always increases over the winter. The jets get stronger over the winter, and that's just the way the weather cycles. So I really can't speak to any of the, is it getting worse or any sort of thing like that.
No, I love that, because that's the facts, isn't it? So regardless of what, so you can see that it's cyclical, but then, unfortunately, somebody in the media says something, and then it becomes like, that's it. Then, it's, well, this is a thing. So I think that's really fair. And to be honest, pilots love jet streams, don't they? And airlines love jet streams, because it's going to it's fuel saving, it's shorter flights, and so that's all good. I think getting those big columns of air, which a lot of people, because I think it's fascinating. We'll listen to one of the pilots describing that obviously early aviation didn't know, they couldn't work out what was going on, and it's only as it's evolved that it kind of worked out. There's these free lift going, there's extra power for free. So that's
right. And that's partly why we do have these products is they're for flight planning. And so if you want to find out, can you save some of that fuel or time on that, that's why they're in flight planning folders and why we do them. We put out the information so that the pilots and the dispatchers and everything can make the best decision possible for them.
Because I was interested, like, how you would have started as a business, as an organization, not a business, and that you've grown to the point now where you've got that it's 24/7 operation, and you've got all these different desks with different focus. I just find that amazing that you're just there beavering away in the background, and nobody would necessarily know it. They just say, because we in the UK, they'll say, this has come from the Met Office, and that's all we hear. Don't know what that means, is that one person? Is it 50 people? We have no clue, and there we are, a real human who does this as a job.
Yeah.
That's you, by the way. Yeah. So, so the nervous flyer then, what, thinking about that, and you do take time to answer this one, but what sort of messages would you like them to think about when it comes to weather predictions, weather systems and stuff, in terms of, the expertise that you see day in, day out?
Kind of like I mentioned earlier, about the forecast offices here, we've got, we've got some highly skilled people that are dedicated to our mission. And it's kind of a funny story, especially whenever I got this podcast interview, is I'm not a fan of flying either. And I work for the weather office, the aviation weather. So I use all of our products before I have to go on a flight. I'm checking our webpage. I'm checking our forecasts, even for me, like I don't think anyone's a huge fan of turbulence. But at least if I can see that it's forecast there and check the PIREPs, like if planes, that are flying through this area are getting bumped around a bit, I can prepare myself for that. So, and then too, aside from us having the products that anybody can look at, there's people here, which I think I know is, you're kind of surprised at the scope of, the office here, but there's, we have forecasters that are specifically, looking at all of these hazards. We have, visibility restrictions, turbulence, icing, thunderstorms. We have somebody here all day, every day, watching that to make sure that, again, to promote safe and efficient flight.
There you go. That is the message. All these people, day in, day out, promote safe and efficient flight. Fantastic. I mean, that's, as we say, as I often say on the podcast, that's your mic drop moment, isn't it? If anybody's listening, you got to think of somebody like Amanda that's going to be working there. Somebody that is thinking about all these elements that could get in the way of us having safe flight. And because of the improvements over time, that's part of the reason why commercial aviation is so safe. Fantastic. So what can we do to help your fear of flying?
Oh, my fear of flying?
Yeah. You say you don't like flying. You didn't call it fear, so maybe I've jumped ahead there.
No, I mean, I don't think it's anything specific. It's just weird to me, I think, to be in, in the air. It's not normal, but obviously I don't mind it too much, right? Because I'm in the field of it. But no, I think kind of like I said before, what's really helped me is knowing that this office exists, knowing that there's forecasters, looking at this stuff day in and day out, and the fact that I can look at it myself too. It's free to the public. Anybody can look at our webpage, and it that helps too. Especially like I'll usually look at wherever I'm going to see what the conditions are over there too, so I can prep for that. Or if pilot reports are showing some bumps, or if we have turbulence forecasts coming in, or what's going on. But and two, for thunderstorms, it's really helped out. Seeing that, okay, we can get around this one, or there, the storms are to the south right now, stuff like that.
Yeah. Because I always say to people who are nervous flyers not to check the weather.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I say check it down route so you know whether you take swimwear or a big jacket. But on the route, there's lots of people like you doing that already, so they don't need to. But we do have some people that are on high alert the whole time, and they're on Turbulence and all those other apps looking at the weather forecast, which I don't know if they're linked to your site or not, but quite a lot of people use those to kind of look at it and go, what does this mean? But without your understanding of it, I always think it's a bit more dangerous, because a little bit of knowledge must be worse, because they won't know what they're particularly interpreting. And if it's got like colour on it, so it's moderate, they'll be like, oh, what's that mean? It's moderate, bad. So whereas you'd be able to look at it and go, okay, that's what it means,
Yeah. So on our webpage, we actually do have, I believe it's like maybe a question mark icon. I'd have to double check. But there is an area that will explain the products. So again, I'd have to try and hunt it down.
All right. Yeah. We
there we go. It's a question mark. It's a help. Oh, right. It's a help question mark, and it goes over our products too. So that might be helpful.
What's the best or the easiest website for people to look at that covers the majority of what you do?
If you go to aviationweather.gov.
Aviationweather.gov.
Correct. Perfect. That's our website, and you can navigate to whatever you want to look at. We actually, I mentioned earlier, we just did a website upgrade in October. And so we made everything basically integrated into one interactive display. So you don't have to go to all these different locations to look for different things. It's just all there for you, and you can customize it as well to what you want to look at.
Very good. So I think this is the right thing. But yeah, anyone who wants to find out more, you can go onto the website, aviationweather.gov. Is that right?
That's right.
You knock yourself out. But bear in mind, you're not a trained meteorologist, and so when you're looking at it, just sort of maybe have a little bit of caution. Is this helpful for me to know? But there's great information here, and you can sort of trust that you've got people like Amanda and colleagues that are on this all the time anyway. You don't need to do it. But anyway, if you want to, at least you're going to the correct source rather than just some app that you don't know where it's getting its information from, or some media report. So we'll
right. I'm not trying to make anybody more anxious.
No,
flying. So
you're offering the facts. And the facts, correct. I think people can deal with the facts. You say it's going to be a bit choppy. And I go, right, fair enough. I know that. Then I can think about that, what I'm going to do about it. And personally, I would still look, because I couldn't be bothered, because I'm not sure I would do anything different anyway. But I don't know, for some people, they like that surety of knowing what's coming up. So thank you. And thank you so much for giving your time. I'm really grateful for this. And I think it's going to be really interesting to see what the reaction is from the community, because to know that that you're there. I think it's going to be largely positive, because you've said a few words that just saying the word turbulence, people or thunderstorm, be enough to make them sort of, whoa, triggered. But the fact that you've got people dedicated to just looking at that, forecasting and advising, that's surely got with a really reassuring message from this.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, thanks for letting me come on and talk about what I do. So
no, it's brilliant. Thank you very much. Thanks, Amanda. It's great.
You're welcome.